So, Andrey, thanks for being with us. And we wanted to know a little bit more about the wheat cargoes that Russia sent to Brazil, because it's been two of the first ones of the year, and would be for 60,000 tons, which is quite a number. We would like to know if you were expecting more this year or you don't have news about it.
Okay, so as far as we know, two vessels already have been loaded. That's around 60 or 70,000 tons. There are different numbers from different sources. One is Soдружество, that's the largest Russian soybean crusher. They import soybeans from South America, Brazil, and Paraguay, and they send back wheat. And another vessel, it was loaded by Glencore and probably will be milled at Glencore's mill in Brazil. Probably we'll see more vessels this season. It has just started for Russia, July. That's the first season for the current marketing year. Potentially we could see, I think, around 300,000 tons shipped to Brazil this year. Perhaps maybe slightly more, maybe slightly less, but I think it's quite reachable, especially if we see a poor crop in Argentina, which could boost Brazilian imports from other destinations. But obviously, number one competitor for Russian wheat in Brazil, not Argentina, but the US. That's the largest supplier after Argentina. So potentially US supplies to Brazil could suffer this season.
Great. So as we know, Brazil has a new tariff-free quota for importing wheat from Russia, or for different countries outside of the Mercosur bloc, actually. Do you think this was a decisive factor when it came to deciding where to buy from?
Yeah, but they obviously could buy from the US as well, not only from Russia. So yes, it was an important factor, those that tax-free quota. And also Brazil says that quota could be permanent, so that would help supplies from other regions, which is not good for Argentinian farmers. So yes, that's important. But actually, according to traders, in some cases, a Russian wheat could be even competitive with the tax, without exemption. So I think the tax is 10% or 12%, and in some cases, Russian wheat could be competitive. It could be a bit strange, but it happens. Also, for example, Russia actually used to sell some wheat to Mexico, which is just in the Gulf, which is the very important buyer of the US wheat, and still Russian wheat, not in the past season, but in the previous season, Russia sold around 300,000 tons to Mexico. So sometimes it could be very competitive.
So do you think these shiploads going to Brazil is a consequence of having a lack of cereal available in Argentina at the time?
I think it was just competitive, and it's hard to comment at this stage. Let's just keep this question, because I'm not a big expert here. But obviously, what is more important, I think, that's important for Russia and the Black Sea and other suppliers. How big is Argentinian crop going to be? Is it going to be 20 million tons or 18 million tons or 21 million tons? That's a big difference, plus minus 3 million tons. Because, and that would be very important, the second half of the grain season for the Black Sea, I mean January, June, because we have a new crop coming out of Argentina, and also this season we could see a huge crop coming out of Australia. So potentially a very big crop. So that's those are important factors to be in mind for Russian traders and Russian farmers.
Definitely. So if I'm not wrong, 2 years ago, Brazil imported from Russia 26,000 tons of wheat, and last year increased this amount to around 92,000. Are you expecting these numbers to go higher and higher every year?
Yeah, I think it all has started just 2 years ago, and that vessel which you mentioned, I think it was the first commercial supply. It was Brazilian millers. It was they just could mill it near ports. They couldn't take it inside the country. After that, as far as I can understand, that experiment was a success. So in previous season, 1920, Brazil bought around 90,000 tons. And yes, as I mentioned, this season that number could go higher, potentially 200,000 or 300,000 tons. Longer term, it's hard to say. Obviously, Argentina should remain the major supplier covering Brazilian demand. But as per US, I think Russia could be a very strong competitor to the US supplies to Brazil.
Okay, so as regards Russia wheat production, some of the overall outlook for 2020-21 got the numbers of the amount that you guys are gonna harvest, and some of other predictions hide this number. So I was wondering, what's your prediction at the moment? Are you expecting more wheat from the next harvest or not?
So our most recent forecast is 79.7 million metric tons for Russia. That's this crop 2020 and 2020 and 21 green season. It's roughly plus 5 million tons to the previous year. That's if our forecast is true, is going to be a very good crop. Which would be the second highest crop in the whole history. First starting yields were pretty disappointing in south of Russia. That area near the Black Sea, it has suffered a lot, especially southern Ukraine, western Ukraine, eastern Romania, and southern Russia. They have suffered a lot, and yields were pretty low. Actually, in many cases, below our expectations. But this is being partly offset by a very good outlook for other regions, because, as you know, Russia is a huge country. There are different regions. South is not good, pretty disappointing. But at the same time, we have a very good crop in central Russia, central Black Earth. It's to the north of the Black Sea. And it looks like there is a very good crop involved in the Volga Valley. That's to north and east. So at the end of the day, it could be a very good crop. But that's mainly winter wheat. We also have to make things more complicated. We also have spring wheat. And yes, at this stage, there is a big question mark over spring wheat, because it's mainly been produced in Volga Valley and eastern regions of the country, like Urals and Siberia. And weather conditions are not so well there. It's a bit too dry, too hot, and we need to get those regions need to get a good precipitation in next, I would say, 2-3 weeks, or the yield potential could suffer there badly.
So a little bit predicting what could happen and what could not. Do you think expectations might be able to go up for Russia for the next years or not?
If we talk about the export potential this year, our estimate for wheat is 36.4 million tons, which is plus 2 million tons to the previous year. Awesome. And still a good number, not the highest one, because the highest one it was in 2017-18, it was 41. Now it's around 36.4, but still a good number. And for Russia, the start of this season looks quite good, because there is slightly lower crop in Ukraine, which is a big competitor for Russia. And the number one competitor for Russia is the EU and France specifically, and they have quite poor crop. And that's why we have relatively high prices at the start of the season. So the first half of the season, it looks quite promising, but the second half, it could be a bit more complicated because of Argentina, because of Australia, which I mentioned, and also because of our internal issues, because similar to Argentina, Russian government decided to control exports more, grain exports more, and we could see some restrictions in the second half of the season, which also obviously could affect export flows.
Great. Well, that's all for now. Thank you so much for talking to us, and we're definitely going to keep up talking to you and updating the information.
Thanks, Elizabeth.